So VHS Halloween is the 8th film in the VHS anthology horror series. And, it feels like, because the last few VHS horror films have been coming out around Halloween, so it's become a little bit of a Halloween tradition at this point. And, it was only a matter of time before we got to a Halloween-themed VHS film. We've had Beyond, which was science fiction. We've had 99, which is framed in 1999. We've had 85. We had 94. So now we're getting to more of a general theme. So Halloween seems like a pretty easy theme to go with, and for the most part, I feel like this film works for what it's trying to explore with these found footage horror films set around Halloween. In the ranking of VHS horror films, I would say this ranks somewhere in the middle. I felt like there was a good mix of different ideas in all these shorts, and there wasn't a short I felt was particularly terrible, but also not one that I felt was really great. There's some really good ones here, some really great ideas, but it always felt like there was a little something missing here. And I think that's only because we're so far into the VHS franchise at this point that I'm a little bit more scrutinizing. So I've kind of raised the bar a little bit, between the ones I love, like VHS 2 and VHS 99 and 85. I really love those ones because there are ones I don't like in those segments, but there are ones that I absolutely love, and that's kind of usually how I grade these type of films. So the framing device for the Halloween, for VHS Halloween, is called Diet Phantasma, and I do kind of appreciate the frankness of these segments, these connecting bits here, which is just it's just a series of people being tested to try out this new diet soda that's supposed to have literal ghosts in it. And every time they let a test subject drink it, something horrible happens. Like the can will eat them, or it'll crush them, or it'll cut out their throat, or tentacles will come out. And that's pretty much all those segments are. And I do have to appreciate the fact that is what they set out to do with Diet Phantasma. It's nothing more than just a series of people getting killed by soda, which is fine. I do like the fact that they're not trying to build to something much bigger here. It's just a series of kills, and they're pretty competent and exciting kills. You do kind of question a little bit how it's supposed to be an internal study that is being filmed secretly, and there's multiple camera angles. So as long as you're not willing to question that, it's a fine framing device. Now, the most controversial of these segments is the first one that they have after the opening bit, which is it's called Coochie Coochie Coo, and it's basically a haunted house film, except the haunted house has a milking mommy and adults in diapers, and it's very much I know a lot of people are going to approach the segment in this way. That's okay, this is clearly someone's fetish that they're turning into a horror film here, and I think, depending on where you fall on, that fetish of of milking boobs and people in diapers and acting like babies, you are either going to love this segment or you're going to hate it. As for me, I felt I was a little bit torn. I was somewhere in the middle there because, yes, on one level, it is very disturbing and off-putting if, you don't like that type of concept of seeing adults acting like babies. And especially there's some very creepy stuff involving breast milk and gross pumps and stuff like that. So if that's not your jam, you're probably going to end up skipping this segment. And I was a little bit off put by it, but at the same time, I do like the fact that this is a haunted house segment where the nightmarish monster here is not trying to kill people. The nightmare monster here is a woman who feels like her goal in life is to be a mother to all these adults who come into her domain, and she basically doesn't want to kill them. She wants them to become a part of her family. So I did think that was an interesting angle. I just don't think it was as explored as much as it could be, because most of the film is just running around the house and looking at creepy stuff, oh, here's some gross toys, and oh, here's like an ancient breast pump, and here's some photos telling us a little bit here and there. It felt a little bit too standard for an idea that could be something a bit more. So I did appreciate the fact that it's very off-putting and disturbing. And I think for some people, that'll be like the make or break moment for them very early. There's a much different tone with the segment that follows it, called Ut Supra Sync Infra, which is a Spanish language short about a Halloween group who goes to this spooky place, and there's this haunted phone where if you recite the title of this segment, you will get a phone call. You'll basically become possessed, and you'll start pulling out people's eyeballs. Now, the idea itself is not all that intriguing, I guess, but the presentation is beautiful. I love how it's framed between like the segment of the Halloween party coming to the phone and the police investigating the murders who are led to the phone, and you're watching the same thing happen again from different angles. So there are some very fascinating shots here, especially the scenes where all the police officers are just being held down, and you're slowly watching, the possessed figure run around and slowly pull out people's eyeballs. It's like it's very gruesome, very gory, and very disturbing, and it's expertly shot. So it's one of the cases where I didn't really like the idea, but it's shot very well. So I very much appreciated the director putting a lot of effort into the haunting nature of pulling out eyeballs and making people float in the air, making people become possessed, and just framing a disturbing little phone. It's pretty good. It's a very good exercise in supernatural gore. Now, where I might be a little bit controversial here is how I didn't really favor the segment fun size, because I do think it's a very good idea. This is a segment where the concept is that there's a weird candy bowl set out, and it says only take one, and it's all these like weird candy that's shaped like body parts, and it's like it's all chewy and gross, and it's candy that people have never heard of. And so there's this very obnoxious group of young people who are filming everything, and they go to check out these candies, and they end up taking more than one. And when you do that, the bowl literally sucks you inside into this weird candy factory where people are chopped up and turned into candy. Not a bad idea. I really like this concept. I love to see where it can go. And unfortunately, it doesn't really go anywhere all that unexpected. Like, they clearly put a lot of work into making a very like creepy antagonist who looks like this very disturbing candy king type character who, he's got a very creepy smile, and he kind of like bleeds Skittles and all that. And his little machine that he uses for putting people on conveyor belts and chopping them up and basically turning them into like chocolate coated candy, I thought was very gross and very gory and very disturbing. But unfortunately, this is a segment where it feels like they're constantly, gawking and pointing at everything, like saying like, look, oh, what's happening? Oh, their body's getting chopped up. Oh my God, look, they're turning them into chocolate. Look how much detail they're putting into the caramel, and how they cut off this guy's dick and now it's covered in chocolate. Isn't that gross? It's like, yes, it is gross. It is disturbing. Do the annoying characters have to keep pointing it out every 2 seconds? It's like, can we just allow ourselves to just be engrossed in the grossness just for a little bit? Just because like there's an overarching plot about a loveless proposal here, about a fiance couple that aren't really in love with each other. And it really didn't go anywhere for me. Like I can kind of see how it's meant to be like cut off as a moment where they don't really have faith in each other, but it just kind of gets lost in all like the spooky candy factory theatrics that come about with it. Little bit of a disappointment, because I think this was from the directors of was it Too Many Cooks, that very disturbing segment from Adult Swim. So I had a little, I think I had too high hopes for this, because it's a very good idea and I like the way it's staged. I really didn't like the characters and how much they kept gawking at all it felt like they were trying to break the fourth wall constantly, because at one point they reference how, oh, we have all these cameras, because it's a joke about how, oh, in those found footage horror films, everyone's filming everything constantly, and we have all these cameras for different angles. Isn't that ridiculous? Like, Okay, I get it. Can you have a little bit of faith in your segment here? Now, I'll skip to the last segment here just because I want to save my favorite for last here, because like the other one called Home Haunt felt like more of a ride. It's a segment where there's a haunted house that's put on by this father-son duo, and they come across this spooky record they decide to play when they have their annual haunted house walkthrough. And when they play it, all the attractions come to life. So everything that you would expect happens with a lot of quality gore placed into it. Like vampires come to life and they start ripping off flesh, like they start tearing limbs off of the unfortunate people who enter. There are spooky like bedsheet ghosts, but the bedsheets will like they'll wrap themselves around you and basically turn you into bloody chunks. So okay, that's pretty good. There's a witch that burns off skin. There's a hooded torturer guy who will decapitate people. All great gore and stuff like that. But the film kind of becomes a little bit more of a ride. Where I was appreciating more of the theatrics than I did, caring about any of the unfortunate victims. So it's one of those. I was very torn on that. Like I appreciate the effort put into the gore and the special effects and just how quick it is with the pacing. But it came off more like a ride, where it's just like, oh, here's a cool series of kills and little more than that. It felt like it was just kind of like speed running through a whole bunch of different like haunted house scenarios. Now my favorite segment here is one that I think the reason that I like this segment the best is because it doesn't involve anything supernatural or paranormal. It's a segment called Kid Print, which is all about this electronics store that films children so that there's something for the cops to go on if a child goes missing. And a lot of parents have decided to do this for this Halloween in 1992 suburbia, because a lot of kids have gone missing and they're very concerned about, what serial killer is on the loose. So they film all these segments where, the kids, they stand in front of a lineup, or, they can show the height, they can talk so you can hear their voice, they can list like their interests and their personalities so that people can recognize them if they see them in public or something like that. So very, very relatable aspect for that era. But also, like, the big reveal here is that, without giving away the big twist, it's basically the adults who scrutinize over wanting to maintain security over their children that end up being, like, the real culprit here, and the ones that are torturing children and using the electronic store to their advantage of basically like torturing kids without anyone else knowing about it, and just relying on relying on like the manipulation of video to kind of to let the killer get away in the end. So it's very disturbing, especially for the scenes that they show of like tortured children's and like the way tortured children and the way that that one unfortunate adult gets brutalized by this killer who, and I love when they reveal the killer, because like the killer does have like a motive here, and a very disturbing past, but it's very subtle. Like there's never a moment where they clearly outline it, like, okay, here is the killer's history and past. Like they always keep it just enough of an enigma so that you're creeped out and you're fascinated and you kind of want to know more, and you're almost like frustrated that you don't get more of it, and you're like, wait, this guy is disturbing. It's like, why would he do this? Like, I got a little bit of it, and I kind of want to see more of him. So I'm almost kind of like fascinated to see if they'll if they'll kind of expand Kid Print into more of like a feature film, or if it'll return for another VHS segment, because I'd really like to see more of that concept. So yeah, I really did love Kid Print. So overall, there wasn't a short here that I hated. Like I was very disappointed, I think, in fun size, and I was very much on the fence about Coochie Coochie Coo, but for the most part, these were all pretty good segments here. So that's why I say it's kind of in the middle here. There wasn't like a standout one that made me just fall in love with it. Usually it feels like there's one I really don't like, and there's one that I absolutely love in these VHS segments. And it wasn't really the case here. It was kind of like a very even mix. It's like it's for lack of a better term, it's like it's a trick or treat bag where it's like, okay, there's some fairly good stuff in here. This is all stuff I'll eat. There's nothing I'm going to throw out, but it's nothing I'm all that excited here for. So yeah, it's fine. It's it's not the best of the VHS franchise, but it's still pretty fun, and I always look forward to these films every Halloween. So yeah, VHS Halloween gets the job done of a few really good found footage horror films, even if they're not as great as the past VHS films. I think for kid print alone, this is worth watching. So yeah,